Welcome to Law and Hip Hop, the number one place where you're going to get information about law, law from a hip hop perspective for the culture, by the culture, breaking down the top stories for the week that affect Black culture. And we got a great show for you today, as usual. So before we get too far into it, I want to make sure that I welcome everybody. If it's your first time, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let us know right now where you're watching from. Rep your city, rep your state. Let us know where you're from, your HBCU. We're glad to have you here. So just type that in the chat so we can know who's here. If you're watching live, type live. And if you're watching the replay, let us know that you're watching the replay. We want to know how and when people are watching. So either way, we just want to make sure we say welcome. So we don't want to, go too long talking about it, but obviously Black culture is important. We want to make sure that Black people can get the information that we need legally. I was talking with one of my clients yesterday, and she said, I'm so glad that I have you to ask these questions to, because there's so many things in the law that we just don't know. And that is so true, even for lawyers. So no lawyer can know everything about every area. So it's important that we know a lawyer so that we can reach out to them and they can guide us on the right path, which we can also do here at the Dope Black Lawyer channel. I don't know if I said it yet, but I am the Dope Black Lawyer, Josh Jones, ESQ. And let's just go ahead and get started. So the first story we're going to talk about today, we're talking about Ja Morant, a young man we spoke about a few weeks ago. If you remember, Ja Morant was wilding out a little bit on Instagram. He went from Memphis to Denver, was up in the club, and he was, going live with a gun. So he got in a little bit of trouble for that. And even before that, we didn't really talk about it, but there was an incident at his house where he was playing basketball with some teenagers, and he's not too far from a teenager himself. He's a pretty young player, and somehow they got into some sort of altercation where him and a friend are alleged to have beat up this kid, and the kid sued Ja, and Ja sued the kid back as well. So Morant admits that he did punch the kid one time during a pickup game at his own house. And he says that the kid ended up leaving, saying he was going to spray it up like the 4th of July at his house, meaning, he was going to come back and shoot up his house. So it's another one of these stories like where we really want to make sure we're making smart choices. So whatever happened. But it reminds me a little bit in some ways of, when the celebrities try to keep it too real, stay in the hood, or invite people if they're not in the hood to where they're at. Like, oh, yeah, we still want to be, in the streets or whatever. So now this dude who we don't really know who he is, but he is the type of person who would even allege that he was going to come back and shoot his house up, which makes Ja's family not safe. So we want to make decisions that are going to be smart, that are going to make sure that we're able to do what we need to do so that we can continue to provide for our family. So we'll continue to follow the story. This happened in Memphis where Ja plays basketball, and we'll continue to follow the case and see what happens with this case. But I hope that neither one of these guys escalates the situation. They've gone the legal route. Another thing, when you're a celebrity, when you're an athlete, and you got a bunch of money, you got the most to lose. So sometimes people just try to do stuff to you to try to get you to react so that they can try to do something to try to get you to hit them or to do something to them so they can try to sue you later on. So everybody wants to be hard until it's time to file a lawsuit. And that's what it seemed like might be happening right now. The dude was talking tough, and now he sees an opportunity to get a payday. So we'll continue to follow this story with Ja. And Ja, in general, his team's in the playoffs. They just played the Lakers last night and were able to win Game 2. So we'll see how that goes. We wish that young man the best of luck with everything he's got going on. Another story that luckily it was serious enough but not too serious, but there was a woman in Ohio who went to Target and she rang up $1,000 worth of groceries and things of that nature. And as you can see in the picture, the security guard swung on her. So basically, when they told her what the tab was, she said that she wanted Target to pay her back in reparations. So she had no intentions of paying. I'm not mad at no sister that wants to get reparations. I want my reparations too, but $1,000 is not going to be enough. Hey, everybody has gotten reparations from the United States of America, including those people who were not ever even here. They're giving money to people in other countries. But black people built America. Make no mistake about it. That is a fact, for free. So anybody that want to get reparations for anything, I'm with it. And until we get those reparations, I don't want to hear nobody say, why you always bringing up race? Why is it always a race thing? Because when you read the comments in these stories, it always is a race thing. So people be talking about black people like dogs in the comments, trying to make it seem like, we got this problem, we got that problem. When even if that's true, let's just say it is, it goes way deeper. Like my fellow CAU alum, Kenya Barrister says, because of slavery. So until we fix that, we could keep talking about running back them reparations. So the woman, her name was Karen Ivory. She was found to actually be the aggressor in the situation. I don't know how. She didn't swing at anybody, but she said several times that she wanted her reparations and that this was her Rosa Parks moment. And I do want to comment on that because for all we know, maybe Rosa Parks and whoever else did things in the past was doing things like, oh yeah, this is my Harriet Tubman moment. But we don't know that. But it seems like in the age that we live in, everybody is like doing things, trying to create a moment or whatever the situation is for them to have an opportunity to get some shine, maybe get some clout, whatever you want to call it. So don't do things just so you could get a moment. But if you really believe in it and you were standing on them reparations, Karen, I'm with you all the way. So, they like to say things like, this is what the New York Post reported. According to the court reports obtained by the New York Post, the customer walked aggressively towards the Target manager, constantly saying that to the manager she wanted reparations, as well as accusing the manager of having a privileged life. So, I mean, maybe there's more to it than what we're getting, but like, I don't understand how she ended up getting arrested for that, and she actually ended up doing a day in jail, and she was fined $110 for disorderly conduct. So it seems like a very minor situation that easily could have been. Everybody could have just went their separate ways. There wasn't no need for her to get arrested for that. That's just like a waste of everybody's time. It's kind of like that old lady that got arrested and taken to jail for not having paid her water bill. Anyway, another story. This one is more serious. We're able to joke a little bit about Karen Ivory in Ohio, but Ralph Yarrow, a young man, 16-year-old young man, and from all accounts, seems like a stellar young man at that. He was asked probably by his parents or his family to go pick up his younger siblings from where they were at. And this happened in Kansas City, Missouri, and he rang on the doorbell, and he ended up being shot in the head and also in his body and taken to the hospital. So it was crazy. He had to knock on 3 different doors just for somebody to even respond to him. And when they responded, they told him he had to get down on the ground with his hands up so that they would feel safe responding to him as a victim of a shooting. So when the story came out, we didn't have much information about the shooter, but it was determined that the shooter was an 84-year-old man named James Lynch. And the man claims that he heard his doorbell and then he heard somebody trying to act like they were trying to open the door. So because of the size of the individual and who he saw at the door, he was in fear. So after a few days, he finally was arrested, and he was charged based on his advanced age. Excuse me, I called out the wrong name. Let me make sure I get this right, because James Lynch is the man who helped the kid. Make sure I get this 84-year-old thug's name right. Andrew Lester, one of the grandchildren of Andrew Lester. So his own grandson, I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but Andrew Lester was the man who was at the door. James Lynch was the man who helped Ralph Yarl. Um, so like I said, um, when Ralph saw the gun, he tried to run, and the man shot him in the head and in the body. After about 3 days in the hospital, he was able to be released, but he's going to be affected by this for his entire life. Some of the people we've talked about a few times, dope black lawyer Ben Crump, along with dope black lawyer Lee Merritt, shout out to the Qs, are on the case. So they're taking care of that young man, and they're going to be helping him out. Now, Andrew Lester, let me show you what this thug looks like, because I want you to see the thug too. So I got his picture right here for you. All right. So this thug, Andrew Lester, said he was in fear for his life when he had a gun because of the size of this kid, who you just saw on the screen right here. Looks like he weighs no more than 125 pounds. So he's not big. Yarl said, so this is their two stories. All right. Lester told police he was going to bed when he heard the doorbell and grabbed his .32 caliber revolver. Lester said he saw a black male he didn't know pulling on the exterior storm door and thought his home was being broken into, according to the probable cause statement filed by police. Lester said he fired twice through the glass door before the male ran away and that they did not exchange words. He said firing his weapon was the last thing he wanted to do, but he was scared to death because of his age and the male's size. Yarl gave a different version of events. He said he did not pull on the door handle and that he was waiting after having rung the doorbell when a man opened the door and shot him in the head and in the arm. Yarl told investigators that he heard a voice say, "Don't come around here." So like I told you, Yarl was hospitalized and released 3 days later. So Lester ended up being finally charged, and he was for felony counts of assault in the first degree and armed criminal action, and could face a maximum sentence of life in prison, and he's out on bail for $200K. So his own grandson says that he's not surprised by this. You know, he's deeply sad and it's a tragedy, and I believe the responsible party must be held accountable. Lester's grandson, Clinton Ludwig, said it Thursday in a text message. So there you go. Since this has happened, it's been a lot of stories, a lot of protests, a lot of people showing love for Ralph Yarl. There's been a GoFundMe. The last time I checked, it was over $3 million donated to the GoFundMe. I'm sure with a quick Google search, you can find it, and I'm going to try to add that to the show notes in the description area as well, so that we can continue to support this young man as he's on his road to recovery. But, you know, this is an unfortunate story. I mean, nothing about this kid is intimidating. The stories just keep coming out. So they had another story. Black teen shot after ringing wrong doorbells. A gifted chemistry student and a gentle soul, former teacher says. So, like, we're not talking about a kid that looks like no kind of thug. I mean, he just doesn't. There's nothing about him that looks thuggish. But, you know, we're not going to go into it today. But on Twitter, they're going crazy. Her name was Royal Madam with an E. Royale Madam. Talking about why was he in a white neighborhood. So that's the type of energy that's out there on Twitter and out there on social media. So, again, we don't always bring up the race. There you go. But until we get them reparations, it is what it is. So, yeah, I'm going to show you one more picture of this kid. Because Ralph, I mean, I know I wouldn't be scared of this little boy. Look at him. I mean, he just looks like a little black genius. You know, excellence at his finest. Attends the Missouri Scholars Academy. That's the school he goes to or went to. I mean, totally not intimidating, not imposing whatsoever. So we'll move on to a story now. Every week we want to talk about and expose some story that talks about police misconduct or something of that nature. Out in California, there was a story, or there was an incident with the Antioch Police Department where it was found out that they had a text thread full of racist text messages. And in this thread, they were like high-fiving each other for threatening black people and causing harm to black people that forced them to be hospitalized, and all types of things. So just to give you an idea, among the text messages were a slew of racial slurs. In one message, Sergeant Rick Hoffman said a woman called him a racist cop, to which the president of the city's police union laughed and responded, "Well, she has a point." Another officer boasted about his ability to use the N-word within his messages to supervisors and even in internal affairs investigations. It's unclear if it was Officer Evans, but while we're talking about him, he did send a text to his colleague, Officer Mortiza Amiri, saying, "I'll bury that nigger in my fields." And oh no, he didn't say nigger. He said, "I'll bury that nigger in my fields." And yes, it was a hard R on purpose. All in the quote. And then Amiri said, "Ha, there's no accents with you on that." So there was other messages where they were calling black people animals like gorillas and monkeys, saying that all black people look the same. They feel like they're at the zoo. And they were talking about LGBT people as well. So this is all around in that San Francisco Bay Area in California, Antioch PD. This week's example of a rogue police department, but they're not the only ones. Here in Florida, for our What the Florida story, we're going to talk about a Boynton Beach police officer. His name is Patrick Monteith, and I mean he is scummy if what they say is true. He responded to a call about a woman. It was a welfare check for a woman who was known to have alcohol dependency issues. So she had like an alcohol issue, and before he left, he gave her his personal cell phone number, and they ended up establishing a personal friendship and then a sexual relationship, according to him. But the victim said that she was manipulated, and she was in fear that if she was not friendly with the officer, she would get in trouble. So she says that Officer Monteith came over to her house, and they were hanging out, and that he sat on her bed and exposed his penis. He denies that that's the case and said that that he came at her request for her to bring a drink and candy. Now, I know she asked for candy, but bruh, totally inappropriate. If a woman doesn't tell you that she wants that candy from you, you cannot offer it to her, especially as a police officer. You got to hold yourself to a higher standard than that. It's nothing. I laugh, but it's not cool at all. I feel very sorry for this woman, and I hope that anything and everything that can be done to this officer is done to him, and he's prosecuted for this. I'm sure it's not the first time that this has happened on the police force in Boynton Beach or other places, and possibly even with this officer. But I mean, you just can't be out here sleeping with the people who you are called to protect. I mean, it's obviously a conflict of interest. So that's our What the Florida story. Patrick Monteith, Boynton Beach Police. You are one sick person, even for what you admitted to. Even if it was not all what she's saying, even for what you admitted to, that's messed up, bro. So now we're gonna move on. It got a little publicity a couple of months ago, but there's an OnlyFans model. Her name is Courtney Clenny, and she was charged with the murder of her boyfriend, Christian Abumseli, and now she's being sued by his family. So just to give like a little recap, she said it was self-defense, but the investigation kind of showed that wasn't the case. So now she was sued on March 17th, and recently an amended complaint was filed. And basically, she was named as a defendant, as well as the security company at the building, the real estate group. All these different people are named as defendants. Everyone, the claim for her was for battery, and everybody else it was for negligence. I have a copy of the complaint, so I just want to kind of go over it like we did last time with the complaint for the Lovers and Friends Festival. So we'll continue to do that. We'll review the legal documents and kind of break them down a little bit. So I got that right here. So, like I said, this actually happened in Miami, where I'm at. And Chio Abumseli, as personal representative of the estate of Christian Abumseli, and on behalf of all survivors. So basically, whenever you have a wrongful death suit, someone has to bring the case on behalf of the estate of the person who was killed. And that person in Florida is known as the personal representative. Other places they may be called the executor. And the case is versus the One Paraiso Condominium Association, Aleros Real Estate, doing business as Aleros Capital Investment, First Service Residential, Universal Protection Service, and Allied Universal Security Services, and the actual woman, Courtney Clenny. So, like I said, this is the amended complaint. This was filed on April 14th, which was last week. And this says that those people that Chio is suing all those people I just named. In the general allegations, it says that this is an action for damages in excess of $50,000, which is not saying that it's a case for $50,000, but in order to be in this particular court, which is the Circuit Court of the 11th Judicial Circuit, your claim has to be for damages that are more than $50,000. So you have to state that. Otherwise, you would have to go to a different court. So it talks about Chio is going to be named the personal representative. It talks about where Christian lived at the time of his death, which is this building where the murder took place. The estate will be pending in Miami, so everything's happening in Miami. They let you know where all the defendants are located, and it appears most of them are in Florida, Miami, or somewhere close by. And then it tells you this case is properly brought in Miami-Dade County because everything happened in Miami. So there's a count for negligence against Aleros Real Estate. There's a count for negligence against One Paraiso. And I'm going to go through it all at once. Also First Residential and Allied Universal Security. So it's the same count. So basically they're saying that each individual group had a duty to take precautions to protect the building's residents and invitees, including the deceased, Christian Abumseli. They're saying that they should have exercised care, should have known to exercise care. And then it lists, it's kind of like a formal thing. So they talk about the defendant, by and through its agents, employees, breached the duty that they had. So they had a duty, they breached the duty, and so they breached the duty to exercise reasonable care for the safety and protection of the subject's buildings and residents and invitees, including Christian, and acted in a careless and negligent manner through the following acts of omission or commission. So things like failing to provide adequate security, failing to forewarn, to protect and guard and secure the safety, failing to police, control, and deter crime, failing to hire and or retain adequate security personnel, failing to have a sufficient number of guards in visible areas, failing to have an adequate number of security guards, failing to hire and or retain competent security guards, failing to properly train security guards to be reasonably skillful, competent, and or qualified, and it goes on and on. So at the end of each count, so as a direct and proximate result of their negligence, the defendant is liable to the plaintiff for all damages to the estate and survivors and beneficiaries. So the things that they say they would be responsible for include future and past mental pain and suffering, past and future loss of Christian support and services, medical care and funeral expenses, loss of Christians' prospective net accumulations, loss of inheritable estate, and all other damages that are allowed. So at the end, you say wherefore. The personal representative sues the defendant and demands a jury trial. So you say that for each count. And then the last count is a battery claim against Courtney Clenny, saying that on April 3rd, 2022, she intentionally touched, struck, and made contact with Christian. And as a result, he died. And as a direct and proximate cause of the intentional acts, the defendant is liable to the plaintiff for all damages. Similar, they're pretty much the same damages: past medical bills and pain and suffering, loss of income, etc. And like I said, they're demanding a jury trial, and we'll find out what's going to be going on with that as well. So we'll keep you updated on that too. And I think we might have one last story. It's kind of another what the Florida kind of thing. We've been talking about him because he's so crazy, but the governor of Florida is a lunatic, and we're gonna go over we're gonna probably have one whole episode dedicated to the types of laws that they've passed in Florida in the last legislative session, so that we can kind of highlight what's going on with him, because until recently a lot of people thought he's the leading candidate for for president of the United States with Donald Trump, but there have been certain things happening that people are saying that he's not necessarily as liked by the Republican Party as we kind of initially thought, but we're going to talk about all of that in detail. So as you can see on the screen, Governor DeSantis signs a bill to allow people to carry weapons without permits, and as long as you're not a felon and you're allowed to, and you're legally allowed to have a gun, you can just walk around with it. Just walk around with it. So there won't be a need for training, and you can carry your gun with you in public. The governor actually thinks that they should go farther and let people just walk around with it on their hip like the Wild Wild West. So far, that has not been passed. One of the Republican senators said the Second Amendment of the Constitution gives people the right to keep and bear arms. It doesn't say if you have a permit. It doesn't say if you done gone through training. It doesn't say if you done a background check. Bad guys are going to get guns one way or the other, and evil people are going to do bad things with the guns. So that's the thought process of these crazy ass people who want any and everybody to be able to walk around with guns. Another state senator, Jason Pizzo, said, "I'm in fact not worried about mass shootings through the passage of this bill. I'm more worried about mass idiots. People are going to die because of carelessness." And it just creates a culture where people will just be walking around with guns even more. And I'm telling you, it's something about guns that give people courage that they did not have without the gun. So I agree with Senator Pizzo. I think that this is going to be something very negative for the people of Florida. It's going to cause us to be the laughingstock of the world way more than we already are. And, we will continue to cover these stories about things happening in Florida as it happens. So there you got it. That's our show. We made it to the end. Let us know what stories you're interested in. Let us know what stories you're interested in. You can either type it in the comments, or you can let us know by sending an email to holla@DopeBlackLawyer, or going to speakpipe.com/DopeBlackLawyer, and we will. You can leave an audio message, and the more that you engage with us, the more that you interact, the more that we can make sure that this is the show for you, and we can make it better each and every week. So if you get hurt, or if you get pulled over by the police, or if you have any other legal questions, holla at your boy, the Dope Black Lawyer, Josh Jones, ESQ. I will holla at you next week. Peace.